Are you rethinking your purpose in life? Being centered in a strong spiritual connection is more important now than ever. Hi, I'm Bryn, Blankinship, hypnotherapist, international instructor, and author. Each episode, along with Dr. Pat, I'll share my experiences with guiding spiritual regression clients into the afterlife and the soul lessons gained, prompting you to explore your own soul's journey and empowering you by shifting your perception of yourself and your place in this world. I want you to know that you're here by design, not by accident. You are not alone. You are loved. You are here on purpose, for a purpose. When you stand in your truth and fulfill your purpose, you support others in fulfilling theirs. If this intrigues you, stay tuned in as we explore.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Pat. I get to take this very cool journey with the most incredible Bryn Blankinship. But here's the thing about today. You see, we were just chit-chatting before the show, and I had an experience over these past 10 days. I didn't know that there was grieving going on. I sat down yesterday because I had a minute of reprieve, and I just sat down in the front room and then in my office and just cried. Now, not disaster cry, but letting go of some things that you thought had a certain meaning to you, and then realizing I need to take a moment to at least experience where I am today. So get ready, everyone. I want to talk about easing grief, and that mostly has to do when we lose a loved one. What does that feel like? How long do we hold on to it? And what is the impact, Bryn, right? Let's talk about easing grief and how it relates to losing people.
Right.
Which we don't really, but that's the term we use here.
Exactly. And, I work a lot in my practice, my hypnosis practice, with people that their loved ones have moved on, have transitioned. And it's really hard for the ones that are left behind. And then also there are other kinds of grieving, like when you're grieving the loss of a relationship, or when your business changes to another level, which is what, Dr. Pat and I were talking about. There were so many synchronicities that came together as I was thinking about the topic we would talk about on the show. So let's talk first about death. Okay. So we know through spiritual regression and near-death experiences, that the soul continues on and we're left behind. So what happens is we're cut off. Our loved ones move on, and the way we communicate with them changes. So the love transcends, but the way we connect to them is different because they're in a different dimension. And that's what causes the grief. That's what we're starting to feel, is the separation of that loss. But when we can move through that, we can be open to the signs, because they're not really gone. They're just right there. They have things they need to do. And when they are trying to reach us, then we feel the pain all over again, and it brings up sadness and emotion. But when you can move through that pain to the other side of it, you can be so much more open to the guidance when they're coming through to communicate with you. So death is not final. That's important to know. And when the spirit moves out of the body, it's moving into an expanded state of consciousness. Okay. So it's, from our view, it's kind of like having an out-of-body experience, right? But the soul is free of the body and has more awareness. And then it moves into the spirit realm, where it's back to the main part of the soul that resides there between incarnations, because a part and just a piece comes down to inhabit the body, and then it returns and it's reunited with loved ones. It is returned to that bigger piece, and then it has a life review. Now, all that's happening. However, the soul might stay around for a bit to see who comes to their funeral. They may stay around to comfort loved ones. I mean, they're busy, yet they can be in more than one place at a time. Okay. So when we're feeling that comfort, that's when a lot of times the sadness comes up.
that moment to breathe, that very short moment that I sat down. And yesterday I also did something extremely emotional for me. And, I'm pretty stoic most of the time when I'm in my doing mode, right? I think we all are. I think when we're in our doing mode, just ask a mom, that's driving children around or taking very focused. They're in that doing mode. Um, but it was yesterday taking that moment, and I had to take that moment to sit down because I had to really think about it. And what came up was so much for me. But let's talk about the signs, because a lot of times when I have those moments, Bryn, I get visited by Linda's mom, by my mom. I get visited. I don't have a better word for it, but I get these quick drop-ins, right?
Yes.
Words of wisdom. So let's talk about the activity of the spirit world and the signs that our loved ones are there. And we get this question all the time on my other show is, I can't hear anybody. I'm not hearing them. I keep talking. I'm not hearing. So I just wonder if grief is the giant blocker. It's like having a linebacker in your brain, heart.
It's pulling that emotion up off of your body, off of your energy field, right? To cry releases. You need that release. So you made me think about something. My father was in the middle of transitioning when I was buying the Braith Center, and he knew I was going to get it, but we hadn't closed yet. And I've got my property now. I'm doing some things around the property. And then I would step out back to the ponds and just kind of take it in, like, because it was a lot. There was just a whole lot of things that happened on top of trying to run my practice, getting a lot of people in my life transitioning, and, I'm trying to pick out wallpaper or paint and, stuff like that. So it was just a lot. So I stood out back. And a landscaper used to own this property. So he's done amazing things with palm trees and plants. And I'm standing there looking at the pond, which I've looked at a lot of times before. And right there on the backside of the pond are these irises. And my nanny, my grandma, used to plant irises when she stayed with us, she planted them at the base of the trees. And my mom always had purple irises, but I like the blue ones. These were blue ones growing in the weeds, like on the wild, on the backside of the pond. Landscaper hadn't done anything over there. I was like, I could feel my mother and my grandmother. I could feel them, one on each side. So I went back in, did my thing. Next day, I'm like, I want to go back and see those flowers. And I went out to look for those flowers, and like I saw those, and right next to it was a whole nother bunch. And I found my mother, my grandmother, my great aunts, my aunts, all these strong women, many of them who their husbands died and they were still left to take care of the kids and take care of things. My great aunts, this happened during the Depression, my grandmother during the Depression with 4 kids, and I could just feel their strength. Okay. So that is just one of a multitude of ways they have shown me in my life, and different ones have come through. So, other ways are those brief moments of awareness that are bold and powerful. Like it's a brief moment of connection, but it opens up so much. And I knew everything that meant, right? And also, they're letting you know they're still here. First and foremost, they're saying, we're still here. I'm good. I'm just not in pain in that body that was sick. Or for whatever reason, it was just time for me to go, but I'm good. And I'm coming back in to say hi, or I'm coming to check in on you. And so you might feel like a cosmic nudge, cosmic hug, nudge, chill bumps when you're hearing truth. That happens a lot. You might have a memory of them, and like I said, sometimes it brings up the sadness first. You might visually see them like an apparition, an image, like a hologram, a holographic image of them that's kind of there, but not a shadowy image. You might get staticky phone calls, or your electronics may be acting up. When my husband passed, I got staticky phone calls, but I could hear little messages in the static. And I was like, That's really cool. My husband always said, when I go, I'm going to come back and haunt you, just so you know that this stuff is real. And I always said, well, you can come back, but why do you have to haunt me? Okay. Well, he made references to certain things when he came back that let me know it was him, right? There's always something that they do, or a sign, a symbol, the message lets you know it's them. Because when someone's coming through, I got to ask, who is this? Because in my case, it could be a lot of different people, right?
Right. Yeah.
A smell, food. A food can remind you of them. Like maybe they cooked a certain meal or a cologne or some scent that reminded you of them.
Oh, that we're sitting there last night. Okay, two things. We're sitting there last night. Just to be clear, there is no smell of cakes baking here. Okay, you just Linda's sitting there and she's like, "Do you smell that? Do you smell there's a cake baking?" And I'm like, "Okay, no, no cake. Do you put a cake in the No, I'm not. I'm not the cake maker. That's not my. But it's I smell this, so it's just like right here. Feels like it's coming through the vents. That's what we're talking about. That's a way to
Exactly.
get our attention. Now, sometimes when we don't pay attention, and this is difficult when you share this with family members, so I really would like your advice on this. You try to share this with a sibling that you're sitting there one day, Linda and I are sitting there, and a dragon lamp that Joan, Linda's mom, gave me, um, before she died, she said, "You give this to Patty." We're sitting in a totally different room. We hear a crash, boom. And we're
Wow.
like, what? So we get up, and the lamp magically launched itself from the dresser to the floor. No bulb broken, no bulb on. And we just looked at each other and we said, "That's Joan. What is she trying to say to us?" Now, here's what I want you to talk about. Sometimes with similar siblings that don't hear from parents or don't get signs, it's hard for them when you share a story like that. Because why is mom talking to you people and not me? Right? So, how do we navigate these tricky waters?
So in that case, it's because one of the siblings is more open than the other, or several of them are open, right, to receive the messages. It doesn't mean that mom isn't trying to reach out to those other siblings. Their grief is blocking it, or they're maybe explaining it away. They're just not aware,
Yeah.
right? There were so many messages. And look, I have siblings. My siblings used to tease me a lot. But after our parents passed and they saw signs, they started calling me, "Hey, guess what? The butterfly happened. A cardinal happened. Guess what happened today? It was a sign." I know. I've been talking about this forever. Now you get it, you know? But like in our family too, my husband's mother loved hummingbirds. She had a little hummingbird feeder that would sit outside her window, and she would just sit there and, watch the hummingbird. We had a love of that, and we got hummingbird feeders and put out. And now hummingbirds come for me as a sign of my husband and my mom, right? So it can be birds. It doesn't have to just be a cardinal. People have that concept that it's a cardinal, but many, many birds. It could be a hawk. Different birds have different symbology as well that's attached to them. It could be a song playing on the radio. So, in preparation for the show, because I'm trying to figure out what's a new topic that we can discuss or go into greater detail about. And in the past week, I've had a couple of clients who were grieving loss. Okay, that is why they came in. And as, as I was about to send the title over to Dr. Pat for what we're going to call the show, I had a client call that I haven't talked to in years, and she wants to come in for another session. Her husband has passed, and he's been coming through in dreams. He passed a few years ago, but she's ready for another session. He has come through in dreams that have led her to documents, to money she didn't know they had, all kinds of things. And what's interesting to note is this client, she actually had a blocked past life regression with me. We had a block session in office. years back. And I said, "So everything happens for a reason. Just it's giving you information, just go with it." And so after the block session, and they were both grieving the loss of a son. So that was part of the reason for it. There were communications from the son. Now the husband has passed a couple of years after that. He's coming through vivid dreams, undeniably him with messages to go look in this place and you'll find this document or these papers. In my book, The Limitless Soul, chapter 3 is the goat herder. That was a woman whose daughter had been killed,
Wow.
someone that they knew. And then in the past life, she went to a lifetime as a goat herder. And it was a pretty mundane life. I mean, you're herding these goats on a mountain, and then you go over here and herd the goats. And then you go over there and herd the goats. And then you go down to the bottom of the mountain to take your goat milk. And then you come back up and you herd those goats. That was the whole life, right? At the end of that session, when she was going home, her GPS, for some reason, she decided to go a different route. And she's a couple hours away, so she took a different route. And as she's driving on this highway, she sees a goat herder out there herding goats. So she circles back around and comes back past him. And when she does, he waves at her, and a song comes on the radio, and the lyrics are, "Do not stand over my grave and weep. I am not gone."
Wow.
So it helped really move a lot of that grief. And, that's what we're talking about here, the synchronicities of your loved ones trying to reach you. And it's understandable to have the pain. The grief is your heart trying to heal from the pain that you're feeling, right? Because you're feeling them in a different dimension now, and they're adjusting, you're adjusting, and then there's that connection. So when I am working with people, if it's going to be a grief session, I do ask them to, if we're talking about past lives or successor, I want them to wait about 6 months. Because I don't want to add the added pressure of trying to get into that deeper space. I lead you, but you're doing it. And, I can do a session to help you move through some grief, but we may not get into that psychic space that they really want to get into. So that's really important.
Yeah. I mean, there is a thing about timing. And one of the things I want to touch upon here in the few minutes we have left is that there is an opening that happens when people do a session. And there are various ways. And I just want to be clear that this is not a one size fits all. When we're talking about Cessor, we're talking about something that's very personal, very unique for people. So it may not be the same, but there is, from my experience of doing the work with you, there is a point where you change. There are things that happen in the days, the weeks, the months that follow that open up a different side. For example, Bryn, I don't know. I mean, I keep talking about the influence of Bob Parkins and GoDaddy, but that's not it. There was a knowing for me that we needed to work remotely. There was no old school thought that people need to come in the office anymore. And so there was something beyond that knowledge that Bob shared with me that said, it's time. Can't always explain that to people, but then it works out perfectly. So can you put the pieces together in the time we have left about connecting with loved ones, how the portals open, and you have a heart opening technique today too, which I could have used 20 years ago.
Well, I have this little technique that I like to use in session, but I've adapted it so that I can let the viewers, the listeners, tune into that as well. So when the loved ones have crossed over, they are communicating with us, right? And they're sending messages. And sometimes it's like that instantaneous, like you were kind of thinking, oh, wonder what would happen if, I'm just giving this as an example. What would happen if I gave up the office? What would happen if I did this? But you maybe hadn't decided, yes, I'm definitely going to do that yet. And then this message comes through that tells you someone else who did the same thing on a massive scale and it worked out, as if, hey, you're on the right track, right? That's what you need to do. I've got some things going on with my practice as well. I've been trying to formulate some things, and like as I get further into it, now it's all starting to click and it's starting to make sense. So that's what we're doing. And those are your guides. Those are loved ones communicating with you. So those are the signs. So you can ask, who's speaking to me? And that person is coming through, helping you with your practice, right? Helping you with your business the way they come through and help me with mine. So let's talk about this technique.
Yes.
When I have a client, wanting to connect to a loved one, I use this as an anchoring tool in session, and I want to strengthen what we're doing in the session so that they can continue that when they go home. So this is like the session that keeps giving, right? So
I do
what
know
I have
that.
them do is put their right hand over their heart, left hand over their solar plexus, over their stomach, right? Right hand on heart, left hand on solar plexus, breathing out and feel the peaceful connection. And then, feeling the love of their loved one like a cosmic hug that's coming from beyond. You can feel your loved one's energy. You feel your aura starting to open up. You're connecting to your loved ones. It's lifting you to a higher place, right? Your aura is expanding as the grief is falling away, because your grief is a lower energy and this is moving you into a higher space. And then you can ask your loved one for a sign or a message. You can ask for clarification on messages that you've gotten, and then listen. Listen as they come through, and also be open to how it comes. So sit with that for a moment and let it come through, but don't ask 100 questions. Ask one question, maybe two, and then sit with it. And then leave, go about your business, and then come back to it another time, and then do it again and again. And you'll get more messages that will come through. Because like if you're moving things around, like I was unpacking stuff here at the office, and then I would step out to the pond and with a cup of tea and take it all in for a minute. That's when things would drop in. Sometimes when I was unloading a box, sometimes I have ancestral items, right, that are here at the Braid Center that are part of the decor. So it might have been Aunt so-and-so's lamp or pottery or something, and they came through. But that's a technique that you can use, and it doesn't have to be this big drawn out thing. It can just be that simple, but might be driving down the road and a song come on the radio, and that is who that person is, right? Or a funny message comes through from someone, because they're usually trying to get you to lighten up. They know how rough it is to be here this is the emotional planet, but that's what we sign up for. And they're sending love, letting us know they're okay. And then they're going on, they've got to fulfill their soul's purpose. We've got to fulfill our soul's purpose while we're still here. And sometimes that means they're going to leave ahead of us. There might have been other lifetimes that we left ahead of them, but that, grief is real. You can move through it. You got to feel it. You can't just pretend that it's not there, or you're shoving it down, but then you can move on from it, and then you can get tuned in.
What's happening today and what you're doing today is powerful. What you're bringing to light is real life experiences that people have or long for, but you're also bringing to life that grief has this purpose to it, which cannot be really defined. But when you talk about it and the way you do the work you do, Bryn, with people, it demonstrates the discovery process. And you're right. I mean, the session I did with you, I joke with Linda, and it's like the gift that just keeps giving. And that moment I had in my front room yesterday where I just broke down, and you don't see me doing that a lot. that when I go there, Linda wants to call 911. But that moment, you can feel multiple connections that are coming in to guide the way. So I want to thank you. How do people find out about you? Any update on the courses you're developing, any and all of the above, and your closing message, please.
You can follow me on Facebook or Instagram at Bryn Blankinship Author, and brynblankinship.com is the website. We're working on the courses. I'll be posting those dates shortly. They're just not up quite yet because I'm working out a couple of things, and a new class, so that people that kind of want to try it but aren't really sure they want to do this as a career, we can get you started, give you a taste of it. And then for those that want to go on and become certified, we can take you through that process as well. So that's why it's taken me just a little bit longer.
Well,
Following that guidance,
you
right?
take your time. You go ahead and take your time, because what you're creating is more than just a class or a teaching. You're creating an opening for people to experience a new sense of freedom and wisdom that they wouldn't have before had access to. So thank you for all of that. Again, one more time for your website, and how do people get your book?
brynblankinship.com. And The Limitless Soul is my book. It's available on Amazon, all national booksellers, Barnes and Noble. It's available in Russian and a couple of, I think another language actually. It's available internationally.
Great.
Yeah.
Look, thank you so much for everything. What do you want to leave us with here?
You're not alone. You are loved. Your loved ones, they're there as well. And when you can be open to it, you can feel them communicating, and you can call them in. You can ask them to come to you, right? And if you cry through it, so what? At least you're opening up so that you can feel them and talk with them and be happy that they're not in pain anymore.
Thank you, Bryn. Thank you, Jessica. And to all of you out there, we're doing this series because we have discovered so much about where you all are, where you need help with, and that's why you're getting the masters of the universe to help you with this. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Afterlife Teacher, Soul Lessons bringing you full circle with Bryn Blankinship and Dr. Pat. Tune into Transformation Talk Radio for more discussions of the soul's journey across different lifetimes and soul lessons gained, helping you to consider the deeper reason you are here. Bryn shares her wisdom spanning 20 years of guiding spiritual regression clients into the afterlife and connecting them with their spiritual team and soul's purpose to bring them full circle, helping you gain insight into your own soul's purpose while supporting others in fulfilling theirs. Living in partnership with your soul, with less worry and greater trust, you can be in divine flow and thrive. For more information on becoming a certified hypnotherapist and regressionist and assisting with the global transformation taking place, visit brynblankinship.com.